Tim Sherwood and Chris Sutton, it's great to have you here with me to talk across the oceans, across continents. Thankfully, we have the internet. How are you both doing in these really troublesome times right now?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? But you're trying to find a structure. Everyone's suffering at the moment. Um, trying to do a bit of training every day, keep myself occupied mentally, physically, and just hoping that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm sure there is. I'm sure the whole world will beat this virus, and however long it takes, we'll come out.
And with myself, Adam, I've been doing a bit of cooking for the first time in sort of 25 years. It's funny, Adam, because for the first week, I've been I travel a lot with work, as Tim does. And for the first week, my wife said she was glad I was home and missing me, but now she can't wait for me to get back to work and for football to restart. So, that is the aim, isn't it? We want to get back to football as soon as possible, but only when it's safe to do so.
Share with us, what's the Chris Sutton meal specialty? What do you cook best?
Well, I went for a toad in the hole. Have you ever had toad in the hole? Yeah, Adam.
I have. I went to school in England, so we had it in school. But I don't think anybody in Malaysia would know what toad in the hole is.
Oh well, you'll have to explain it to them. Maybe if I ever come over, I'll maybe cook you a dish, Adam. If you have the ingredients, but yeah.
I can assure you I will have everything prepared if you ever make it over here. I know you're both very busy, but you've talked to me about what you've been doing recently. What about the two of you and your relationship? It goes way, way back. We're talking about 30 years, give or take. Am I right?
Yeah, it's about that. I mean, Chris was a young boy at Norwich City Football Club when I joined from Watford. I know he was after a couple of years there or a year there, he started introducing himself to training sessions towards the first team. You always knew that he was a good prospect and, a local lad. The fans up there loved the local players, and he was a firm favourite with the lads. He broke into the first team and he was a revelation for the club.
Do you know what, Adam? I used to have to clean Tim's boots and pick his dirty kit up. I mean, this is the long and the short of it. Tim had signed from Watford. I did the hard yards. Tim would have done as an apprentice. But I liked him, and I liked him because I wouldn't have thought he was the wealthiest player back then. But when it came to the Christmas bonus, where the senior professionals would give the apprentices a tip, Tim gave me £20, which was more than what the first team captain Ian Butterworth did at that particular time. So I always. Nothing to do with football, but I always held Tim in a high regard.
Did he ever give you his boots to wear? Well, maybe they're not the same size.
No, his feet are massive. And they're on the wrong legs.
That's quite important, Adam, that.
I can imagine. And I mean, what was your first impression of each other the moment you really started to get to know each other, particularly when Chris was actually breaking into the first team?
Well, more so, I think it would have come at Blackburn really more so than Norwich. Obviously I knew Chris as a young player. He developed there at Norwich City, and when he come to Blackburn, I remember Kenny Dalglish asking me about Chris, just saying, look, there's a possibility that we might sign Chris Sutton. Do you think he will link up well with Alan Shearer? And I said, yeah, don't hesitate. You need to go and get him. Big guy, unorthodox Chris was. You could play long up to him. Technically, he was better than what people give him credit for. And he could put the ball in the back of the net. And he wasn't phased. Had that personality where he's very well educated, Chris is. And a lot of people know that. And I think they he comes from a very bright family, and he's well educated for a footballer, and he seemed to take all the emotions, on his shoulders and never be affected by it. So I knew that it was a step up him coming to Blackburn. We were very close to winning the Premier League the year before he came, and he was the final piece of the jigsaw, in my opinion. And he managed to help the firepower which we had with Alan Shearer and get us over the line and make us champions of the Premier League.
Yeah, with regards to Tim, I mean, you know, as a young player at Norwich, an apprentice, you know, I don't think I played in the first team alongside Tim, and then Tim moved to Blackburn Rovers. You know, I think Norwich wanted to keep him, and that it was a bit of a surprise when Tim moved, because Blackburn were a league below at that particular stage. But you know, Tim had obviously done his research and what have you, and Kenny Dalglish was the manager, and they were a club on the up who wanted to get promoted and then push for honours. But I suppose in Tim's from Tim's point of view, that was a little bit of a gamble, but he had faith that Blackburn would go up and then challenge. And then, you know, for Kenny, I mean, Tim will speak for himself, to give him the captaincy and show that faith in him, you know, was a very, very big thing. You know, Kenny Dalglish, an outstanding player, went into management, you know, did tremendously well at Liverpool, and to go to Blackburn and have that faith in Tim tells you everything about, you know, what he thought of Tim, and Tim as a character, because, you know, Kenny didn't give you things lightly. And then we met up again, you know, when I made the transfer, and then we went on to, you know, really, really good things in terms of winning the title, and we needed a strong captain, and Tim was a relatively young captain, you know, at Blackburn Rovers, but one certainly, you know, we had a lot of strong characters in the dressing room, one who held authority and the respect of the dressing room, and of course, Adam, that's vitally important.
What kind of captain was Tim, though? Because obviously there's different types. There are those that lead by example on the pitch, perhaps not as loud and vocal. There are those that are very vocal and will grab you by the scruff of your neck, the back of your shirt, etc. How would you characterize Tim Sherwood?
Straight. Very straight. Which not everybody likes. I mean, you know, in the dressing room, there are different sorts of characters. Some, you know, some characters are stronger than others. I always liked it. I always thought Tim was a straight talker. You know, he could be aggressive when he needed to be. The most important thing about captaincy is leadership. And I think Tim knew which buttons to press with players, and that was certainly important. But, you know, when I say he was straight, he was fair, and he would accept criticism himself. He would ask, you know, other players what he thought, and I think that's an important thing as well. You know, to find out what your other teammates are thinking and their thought processes. And you know, we had a strong leader in Kenny Dalglish, and certainly in Tim as well.
Is that a fair assessment, Tim? Is that how you want your time as captain of a Premier League winning side to be remembered by your fellow peers?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't think by wearing the armband changed me as a player. I think I was always that character. I don't think it makes any difference whether you got an armband on or not. I've always liked to be honest. You know, I've always been honest throughout my life, really, and definitely throughout my footballing career and into management. Sometimes it's not appreciated because a lot of players, especially the players these days, like smoke being blown up their backside. But unfortunately, it can't all be good news, you know. And sometimes you have to be told that things are not correct and they need to adjust. I felt that I would always play 100%, and I felt I had the capability of not playing well, but perhaps making others around me play a little bit better. So, yeah, it was a great honour for me. Such a great squad of players at Blackburn, and to be the one who led them out week in, week out, and lead them to the Premiership title was a great honour, and will be with me for the rest of my life.
It wasn't an easy role, Adam, captaining Blackburn. When you actually think about some of the quality of players and the characters we had in the dressing room, the likes of, you know, Alan Shearer, Colin Hendry, who, you know, had a big presence at the back. You know, there was competition for captaincy in that respect. But, you know, certainly Kenny saw something in Tim, which, you know, where he thought he would, you know, be the best leader. And essentially that's what Tim was. And when you had the likes, you know, Alan Shearer had a phenomenal career, but, you know, everybody in the dressing room, to a man, not always agreed with what Tim said, but respected him enough to, you know, and trusted him as a leader. And I think that was crucial, you know, in terms of us getting over the line. And people talk about, you know, togetherness being an important part of football. Of course it is. But, you know, Tim's leadership was very, very strong, particularly in that season.
Do you feel that that Blackburn team, because I was going through the squad and I forgot some of these names were there at the time. I mean, on the bench, what, third choice keeper?
Forget, Adam?
Shay Given. I forgot Shay Given was there. Obviously, we know him more from his time at Newcastle.
So did I.
Pun? He was there. He's in the official squad list. Jason Wilcox, Batty, Henningberg, Hendry, like you mentioned, Lasso, Tim Flowers, the two of you, Alan Shearer. When you look at that squad, do you think it's severely underrated in terms of teams that have won the Premier League? Does it not get spoken about enough?
I think it's all about the team. I think was there world-class individuals there? Yes, but was there 5? Probably not. Probably not. It was about the team. It was about putting a jigsaw together. Kenny Dalglish was a master of that, knowing which players to play and which horses for courses, you know, depending on who we were playing, playing the best formation, the best system, what suited the individual players, what he had in his squad. And most of all, it was down to team spirit. It was down to being honest with each other, being able to galvanize each other, being really ruthless at times, giving each other a pat on the back at the correct time, and not holding grudges. Not holding grudges. Everyone knew that the bad news was coming for a reason, because we wanted each other to be better and we wanted the team to be better. So it was a real collective group effort. And individuals, yeah, of course, we had one individual everyone always talks about, which is Alan Shearer, who scored an enormous amount of goals. But Alan would be the first to tell you he wouldn't have been able to do it without Chris Sutton. He wouldn't have been able to do it without the service of Jason Wilcox and Stuart Ripley. Were flying down them wings. The miles what they covered throughout the season, and for a few seasons there, was incredible. Workmen like midfielders like me and David Batty and Mark Atkins, who doesn't get a mention, he was another very good player. And then unsung heroes who come in and done a job, like Tony Gow. I mean, an old man coming from West Ham to come with a steady head. It was a genius, a masterstroke from Dalglish to bring him in, a calming influence there. Ian Pearce, a young boy who come into the squad, he played in that last game of the season there. Outstanding. Henningberg, he was more English. He was a Norwegian player, but he's more English than all of us. You know, it was an incredible bunch of players and just a collective group effort what got us over the line in the end.
We were a smart team, Adam. That's what we were. We boxed clever. There's no doubt we weren't the prettiest team to ever win a Premier League title that there's ever been. But in many ways, that was our strength, because we knew what our strengths were. We knew what our weaknesses were, and we played to our strengths. And, you know, that was what we did. And, you know, we had two good wingers, which, you know, Tim had spoken about. We were solid defensively. We knew how to win games of football and, you know, got on a good run. We were phenomenal at home. You know, you got the ball forward at times earlier. And why wouldn't you do that? You know, when you had the likes of Alan Shearer up top, you had the service. We're a very, very clever team. And I think that was the last of the 42-game season. So albeit it went to the final day and all the drama, you know, which occurred at Anfield and what have you, you can't say we didn't deserve to win the title. And the other thing was, twice against Manchester United, there were major decisions which went against us. So it could have been more comfortable. But for a club like Blackburn, you know, the owner, Jack Walker, coming in, having faith in the town. You don't see owners like him these days. Jack Walker, you know, he only wanted to give the townspeople of Blackburn something to cheer about and something to smile about. It wasn't about making money. It wasn't a money-making scheme for Jack Walker. It was about giving the town something back. You know, he was a Blackburn kid, born in Blackburn, grew up, you know, built a fantastic business, but gave the supporters something back. And, you know, I think Kenny said, you know, we won the title for Jack, and it was a year early by all accounts, according to Jack's planning.
There are rumours that there were some big names linked to the club during this period, like Zinedine Zidane, and there was that quote about Tim Sherwood and Zidane. Was there any truth to the rumours about some of the players that could have gone to Blackburn? Well, I'm not sure if it's true. That's all.
It was after we won the title. So we were English champions, and Zidane and Christophe Dugarry come to the training ground to have a look around. It was an impressive training ground, by the way, but they decided, or Jack Walker decided, that they wasn't going to join us. There was a lot of players linked. I believe we failed to capitalise. You know, we had a foundation there and we should have built again. Jack's feelings were, if it's not broke, then why fix it? I think he was wrong. It's probably more coming from the heart than his head. He was a very astute businessman, but when it comes to football, when it comes to his club, which was Blackburn Rovers, he just played with his heart all the time. And on this occasion, I think he was wrong. I think we should have strengthened at the time, and maybe we would have gone on and won it again.
I think hindsight's a wonderful thing. You know, I agree with what Tim said. Kenny Dalglish going upstairs was a big deal as well. And in many respects, Ray Harford was the first team coach getting the job. That was a little bit unfair on him because, you know, we had stumbled over the line as such, but we had won the Premier League. And for Ray to go in with a job, you know, of that magnitude and the expectation levels there for Blackburn to go again, and the fact that we didn't strengthen, I think that went against Ray. And with respect to, you know, to Ray, he was a good coach. He probably didn't have the presence that Kenny did, you know, as many don't have as a manager. So, you know, the second season, you know, certainly was a disappointment, but then it was always going to be after winning the Premier League.
It's just one of those things we love. Those lists of what ifs, like who Arsene Wenger could have signed for Arsenal, for example. Can you imagine seeing the likes of those players, those Latans and Cristiano Ronaldo's who almost went there? Is it a big regret that you didn't get to play your trade with someone like Zidane and the caliber of the type of player that he is?
Well, look, Jack Walker said, Adam, you keep labouring this point. We had Tim Sherwood. We didn't need Zidane at the time.
That's true.
Look, I personally don't think like that. I mean, you know, stripping it all back, we won a Premier League title at Blackburn Rovers. You know, we were the best team in the country, playing alongside Alan Shearer, the greatest goal scorer the Premier League has ever seen. That's enough, isn't it? And in some respects, it makes the success even greater. You've touched on, you know, maybe not household names you're talking about, which, you know, makes it a better story, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think there was a lot of underestimated players there as well. A few we haven't mentioned. You can't win anything without a good goalkeeper, and we had one of the best. Not only he stopped the ball going in the net, the character of the guy, of Tim Flowers, unbelievable. Fantastic character in addition to the squad. Brilliant he was. I remember the Newcastle game during the run-in. He was absolutely outstanding. Single-handedly, he kept us in that title and took us to the last day. And Colin Hendry was as important to us as Virgil van Dijk is for Liverpool. Now, he was incredible.
He wasn't as good on the ball. Good.
No, he didn't have to be, because he just punted it forward to them two big lumps who controlled the ball, laid it back to me. I got it wide. Someone crossed it and they scored. It was as simple as that.
You make football sound very, very simple.
Tim's right about Colin Hendry. He was a nutcase, Colin was. There was a game at Everton where we'd scored. I'd been on a bit of a drought. I'd scored after 13, 14 seconds. Alan scored, I think, 10 minutes later. And we're 2-0 up. We were getting absolutely pummeled by Everton. And there's a goal-mouth scramble. And Colin Hendry went to tackle someone with his head, like threw his head at the ball on the line. I mean, most people would have thought, well, just let me score, because I'd rather not get my head kicked off. But, I mean, it wasn't probably the brightest thing to do, but certainly the bravest thing to do in that particular moment.
He didn't have a lot to lose there, though. It didn't end his modelling career.
He had a great mane of hair.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, but we squeaked over the line that day. It was another one, but that sort of typified us. You know, sleeves rolled up, all in, all action, and Colin used to get himself in, with respect, he used to get himself in some terrible positions, but the amount of last-ditch tackles that he used to make and time to perfection. That was remarkable in itself.
Makes me very proud to be half Scottish right about now. Were there any key players you enjoyed playing against? I know that Chris has been in the news quite frequently in the last week or two because of the game against Arsenal, let's put it that way, and Lee Dixon and all that. Were there any other moments or players that stand out in your minds during your Blackburn days?
Playing against?
Yeah, that you enjoyed playing against, that you enjoyed having a battle against it. You know, you could get stuck in.
I always loved playing against Roy Keane. I loved playing against Patrick Vieira, some of the great players of the Premier League history in that midfield areas. Yeah, great battles all of the time. I mean, I've come in an era just now. I mean, that man was the best player I've ever played against. You know, you play against the likes of Keane and Vieiras and Petit and all these world. And when you go close to him, they pass the ball. Gazza he wouldn't accept that. He would put you on your backside. He would make sure he made you look stupid for it before he passed the ball. He was an incredible, talented footballer. And certainly the hardest player I've ever played against. I'm talking technical wise. Yeah, there were some tough battles, you know, in the midfield areas. And I would say Roy Keane was probably one I really liked playing against.
I always used to think, Adam, I thought Arsenal, you know, still talk about their famous back line, the famous five. You know, I thought they were the greatest ever Premier League defence that there has ever been. They were always a massive challenge because physically they were imposing, but fantastic readers of the game. And whether you want to have Steve Bold in the back line or Keown, you know, they were both phenomenal players. But they used to make me think as a centre forward, where you know you used to just go up against conventional centre halves who used to actually just play their position as such. Tony Adams, before a keeper had kicked a place kick, he'd be standing in front of you, and you're thinking, what's he doing? And then he'd move behind you. He would work the centre forward rather than the other way around. And you know, add to that Manchester United. I always used to think, going up against Manchester United, Steve Bruce. I used to think Steve Bruce, a little bit chubby, not particularly quick, that I'll always get a chance against him. The amount of times I played against Manchester United and came off the pitch and never got a kick, and Steve Bruce used his body so well, he used to run into you, check you, and what have you. He was a fantastic player, Steve Bruce, great reader of the game and a fantastic servant to United. But they were an imposing partnership as well. Bruce and Pallister. Pallister really quick he was for such a big guy.
Yeah, and now names, I guess a whole new generation don't know them as players. They know them as managers or etc. I guess it could also be applicable to the both of you. No offense there, but it's just how it is. And
I'm offended, Adam.
You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be at all, because you're even more famous now in the world of social media because we all follow you on Twitter and we know how vocal you can be, particularly when it comes to Celtic and how strongly you feel about them. Or maybe Rangers and how strongly you feel about them in a very negative way. But I mean, when it comes to management, etc., I know, Chris, you tried it out about 11 years ago with Lincoln, 10 years ago. And Tim, obviously, we've seen you very recently managing in the dugout. Were you surprised with each other? Did you see your ex-teammate heading into the management path at any point in time when you were players?
With Tim, did I think he would go into management? I always knew he was smart enough to manage, and the fact that he captained, that doesn't mean that every captain, of course, you know, would turn the hand into management. But I wasn't sure whether Tim would become a manager, but I always thought he was certainly capable. He always had, you know, the gift of knowing when to talk and, you know, say the right things. I always just wondered with Tim whether he would have the patience as such, because he was such a strong character and said what he thought. And of course, I suppose that, you know, Tim was smart enough to understand that you have to adapt and treat all players differently. And the other thing is, I would suggest that we played in a different time when you could maybe talk a bit more freely and tell players what you actually think. Nowadays, you know, I think that players in many respects are wrapped up in cotton wool and sometimes take criticism or strong words to heart and take it the wrong way.
In fact, that's something which Tim mentioned early on as well, when I think we were talking about the captaincy and being able to talk and how players are different now. Is that one area which you, I'm not to say struggle to adapt to, but found yourself having to adapt to very fast with the new generation of players?
Yeah, the most difficult thing that is, I just couldn't understand some of the mentalities of the players, not wanting to play football. Not all of them, large majority of them were good professionals who loved the game, and some were doing it for a job, um, and they saw it as a job, which I found incredible, and wasn't. Even if I went back in now, I wouldn't accept that. I don't think that's correct. I think people pay their money. Um, and they love the football. People live for football all over the world. We're missing it so much now. It's been taken away from us. Um, and I think they deserve a lot more. And I think some of the great clubs that I managed, two of the biggest clubs in English football, Aston Villa and Tottenham Hotspur, have deserve a lot more. So I was fighting for the badge really, and some of them players, very few, as I say, the ones who I didn't feel were giving everything to the cause. I let them know in no uncertain terms, and I wouldn't change that again if I went back in. I think it's only correct. I think as a manager, you have to play the game. I wasn't good at playing the game that well. I've learned from that now. If I went back in, I would bite my lip at certain times when I feel like I'm going to explode. I let myself explode far too many times. I think you have to win 2 games a week. One is a football match and one is a press conference. And I think it's almost more important to win the press conference. There's so many actors around at the moment as managers. They're not who they are, what you see on the TV. They're playing a game. I don't blame them from doing that, but I don't want to play any games. I'd rather be myself. And that is what I would continue to do if I went back into another job. Just to be honest with myself.
Though, Tim? Is that a weakness, the fact that you're saying that you don't want to adapt because you want to be authentic?
Yeah, I want to be true to myself. I want to be, yeah, as much as it's wrong, because I could still, I believe if I played the game right in certain stages of my managerial career, I could possibly still be in a job now. But I'm almost a Marmite type character regarding the directors and chairmen of football clubs. I think a large majority of them would be scared of me because they'll be scared of what I might say next if I was going to be too honest. But believe me, if there is a script and I feel like I'm being fairly treated, I would stick to the script. But they've got to hold up their end of the bargain also.
What do you think about that, Chris?
No, I understand what Tim is saying. It's I suppose it's how his employers would view that, and the fact that that managers have to be adaptable. In a dressing room, if you have 25 players, some are strong personalities. Some need a kick up the backside, some need an arm round them, and I think that while I agree with Tim in principle about being true to yourself and saying what you think, and Tim certainly, back in the day at Blackburn, he certainly had the respect, he had the authority in the dressing room, and everybody bought into that. Now I do think that times have changed, and to manage in the way that Tim wants to manage, I think that's personally, I think that's fantastic. But would a lot of club chairman, would a lot of chief executives at club, feel the same way, about that? I think that, that you see a lot of managers, Tim mentioned them, they're actors now, but they have to be like that. They've had to learn to adapt, to stay in their position.
Do you want to get
saying,
back?
I want to be, and Tim saying, well, I'm going to be myself. It's whether chairman are going to actually buy into that. But I agree with what he's saying in principle. It all sounds good, but what's the likelihood of getting the job if you're going to rule with, with an iron fist as such? And that would be the difficulty.
Do you want to get back into management, Tim? Is it something you're actively searching for?
No. No, not. No, I don't want to get back in. It's no, I'm not actively searching. I don't think if you have to apply for a job, you're not getting it. I think you're getting a job before the man who's in charge leaves. The preparation, 9 times out of 10, has already been done. The recruitment process has been finalised, and then they sack their manager and they bring in a new one. That's the way the game works. Everyone knows that. You're only a fool would think that that's not the case. Is there going to be a job out there for me? Would there be a brave enough chairman out there? Who knows? I mean, I would speak. I'd have a chat with them. But what I wouldn't do, Adam, is promise anything what I couldn't deliver. I'm very honest. I know what I'm good at. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. And I would tell them, if they wanted me to develop young players to be able to play at top level in the first team, is something what I've done previously. So I know I'm capable of doing that. But that comes with needing a chairman or board of directors to be very patient, and know that that's going to take a little bit more time. And also, I'm going to need good characters, as in older players. The young boys can only be as good as the older players surrounding them. And I think Chelsea have found that. The young boys who Chelsea have brought into that squad have been outstanding. But I think a lot of the experienced players have come to the front. The Aspilicuetas of this world, Willian's been outstanding this season. They've really helped out the younger players. And I believe that is a core ingredient. The young boys can only be as good as the experienced players surrounding them. Now, could I go in and build a club and build a team to be successful and to create and develop players which are going to be huge value to that football club from their academy? Yes, I could.
Is Harry Kane someone that you point out as a product of going through the system at Tottenham under your tutelage, partially under your tutelage, as being a good example of what you can do?
Yeah, I don't think Harry Kane would be at Tottenham if I wasn't there as manager. They were looking to offload Harry Kane, perhaps because he'd been out on a few loans. Yeah, I viewed it as a development process, games program, which was better than the one he was being offered in under 21 football. I thought it was the best thing for him, and there was a lot of people around the club at the time maybe suggesting that he wasn't going to be a player of Premier League quality. So
why did you stick your neck out for him then, Tim? What made him so special in your view?
Character, mindset, mentality is huge. People talk to me about ability, and if your ability is there, I always believe if your ability is there, but your mindset and your character is there, you've got a chance. If it's the other way around, if your mind and mentality is there and your ability is there, you won't make it. If you can marry the two up, and I think that's what Harry had to his advantage, every single day coming to training and wanted to improve himself. And I knew he had the capabilities. Physically, he was growing. He was getting stronger. He was getting fitter. He was still a boy when I gave him the opportunity to play. So he'd come in at the right time. I threw caution to the wind. We had Roberto Soldado there. The club had paid big money for, of an aging player who scored a lot of goals, a great lad, a lot of goals in Spanish football. But he just couldn't hack it. It wasn't happening for him in the Premier League. And I'd give him 3 or 4 games to try and prove himself. Every single day on the training field, Harry Kane was outperforming him. So it was a decision based on, well, I come from the development side. I'm just going to give this kid the opportunity. He deserved the opportunity, and I give him the chance. And the rest is history. Pochettino took over from me, and which is a great move from Tottenham because he appreciated the young academy players, and he continued to develop him. And Harry developed himself also, and now he is in that world-class bracket of footballers and a very valuable player for Tottenham Hotspur.
What do you think about that, Chris? I can't tell sometimes there's a lag or not if you're going to say anything. So I'm jumping in.
No, yeah, Tim touched on, on Chelsea. They're a very interesting one, aren't they? Because of the situation there, the fact that they were forced to really giving young players the opportunity, while you have to take your hat off to Frank Lampard for actually doing that. But I do think that, at the start of the season, it was one of the first seasons in recent memory under the Abramovich era where there wasn't any expectation on Chelsea pushing for a Premier League title. So the pressure was off, in that respect. And how many seasons, will Abramovich and Chelsea fans put up with them not actually competing at the very top level? Because the truth is they are behind Manchester City and the likes of Liverpool. So, I totally get that. Youth development, developing young players, managers go into job interviews and that they'll bang on about it. They'll bang on about long-term planning. Tim has touched on it. I've got a 5-year plan. You lose 4 games, you're out of a job. It doesn't work like that, which hence you have to be a brave manager. And I think Tim was back in the day, he's talking about Soldado, scored a lot of goals in Spain, came over. They'd spent big money on them. So to give a young player, unproven, other than he's been out on loan, at a lower level, an opportunity, rather than a seasoned pro, that's a huge call, isn't it? And managers simply don't get the time these days to give younger players the opportunities. So, in many respects, Spurs, are thankful, will be thankful that Harry Kane did actually emerge and somebody gave him that opportunity. We've seen, Pochettino, the likes of Dele Alli have come through, Harry Winks. They are giving young players opportunities, but they are in a position now where the club seems to be going backwards under Mourinho a little bit now. The question is, and the question always under Pochettino, did a fabulous job. We all know that. Spurs didn't win anything. And that is the question which always keeps coming back.
Yeah, certainly. And I'm sure England will also be very grateful for having their captain come through Tottenham's ranks and been given an opportunity to really shine. Now, my time is almost up, so I'm just going to have a few more questions here. Firstly, on the topic of Chelsea and Spurs, do you see City and Liverpool continuing to dominate the landscape of the Premier League in the foreseeable future, particularly now with what we can only presume will be financial constraints because of lack of revenue, etc., with no football happening? Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months and how things are going to look like. But if you can try to predict, will it still be all about City and Liverpool for the next few years, next few seasons?
For me, yes.
Go on, Tim.
For me, yes. I think they're so far ahead at the moment. The other clubs have got to play catch up. If you ask me to pick one club who I think might challenge, I think it will be Manchester United. I think that they have the financial muscle to be able to compete, even in these difficult times. I mean, it's crucial that Man City keep hold of Pep Guardiola. Will he be there next season? I'm not so sure. I believe I'll be amazed if they got banned from Champions League football next season. I think there will be 4 teams qualifying for the Champions League next year. I don't think they will ban them. He's crucial. Liverpool, obviously, on the back of they're going to win this title this season if we get started again, and they deserve it. They've been the best, and after missing out so narrowly last year, they thoroughly deserve it. They've got a top manager also. We know what it's like. We've won it. It's about winning it again. How difficult that is. Can they do it? Can they emulate what they've done this year? Are Man City going to get better? Yes, they are. So them 2 are streets ahead. They're round the bend, and the others are playing catch up.
I'd agree with that. I really have to say I don't know where Spurs are going under grumpy old Jose. I think in the past he's certainly proven himself, as a manager. I know people are saying they're getting a serial winner, but you see the way it ended at Chelsea and Manchester United, his last couple of clubs, and I think the signs are already there that he's getting a little bit cranky now, and that he's talking about he needs players in, they need to spend. But he didn't say this when he took the job. He was happy, with the squad which he had. I think Chelsea are a very, very interesting one. And I touched on it, just a while back in terms of expectation of the owner. I think Tim's right. Manchester City, you're looking there and you're thinking, is Pep going to last there? And if he does leave, will the wheels fall off there? But at this moment in time, you look at the City squad, you look at the Liverpool squad, and think that they are, they are miles ahead at this moment in time. And Manchester United are the interesting one, an enormous club who actually, they've been through a tough period, brought wisely, I think, defensively. I think they'll be a bit of a slow burner then, but I don't think they'll compete next season. But maybe in a year or two to come, they may just get back to somewhere near their best.
How would you like to see this season finish? As in, what do we do now? Do you want to see the season end? Give the title to Liverpool? Do we void it? Do we points per game? It's an option. It is an option. No, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's not an option.
It's not a fair option, is it? And in fairness, I'm sitting here talking about fairness. There is no fair. There is no right option. In the end, it's about making the best of a bad situation. I know there's big talk now about the season starting again on June the 8th, but we've just seen the announcement from the French government that they've banned all sporting gatherings up until September. And if that's our neighbour as such, and there's a massive crisis going on at the moment, I can't see how the season can start up again next month. If it does, then good luck to it. But they're certainly putting the economy over health. In that respect, I think the only fair way, and Tim can shoot me down in flames, and so can you, Adam, is the points per game situation. And of course, sides will have to go down. I live near Norwich. I love Norwich, but they have been the worst team so far this season in the Premier League. I don't think that Liverpool deserve the title, and we're long enough through the season. It's not like we're a quarter of the way through the season. There's only a handful or so, games to play. So therefore, it's not ideal. Of course, it's not, and it's not going to please everybody. And you can chuck in, I think, Aston Villa. I think they're in the bottom three. Would they deserve to go down? It's harsh, but they have been one of the worst three teams this season. So you can't null and void it so far down the line.
They have a game in hand as well, so they'll feel even more hard done by. Let's not forget.
Yeah, but there's still points per game. I mean,
of course,
that's the way it goes.
Chris is right. I mean, the only way to avoid it now is points per game. It's the only fair way to do it. The way I'd want to see it finished is, no matter how long it takes. I mean, listen, they can't go beyond September. That's for sure. It has to be before then. But a mini World Cup, game every other day. They're going to have to just get on with it. Maybe 5 substitutions rather than 3. Help out the workload on the players' legs, and just crack it out. It'd be a festival of football. Everyone would look forward to it. I think it would certainly have to be behind closed doors, because the mass gatherings, without doubt, without a vaccine to this dreadful disease, is not going to be available by then. So, listen, health comes first. It's got to come before any football event or any sporting event. But we're led by the government over here, and I'm sure they'll make the correct decision at the right time. But it's going to be very difficult. I agree with Chris. I think I can't see light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. It's very difficult. People are still losing lives, and football has to come second to that.
Yeah,
there's mixed messages, Adam, as well, isn't there? Because you've got the FIFA, the head of the chair at FIFA saying that football shouldn't start again until September, and then UEFA saying to the individual organisations, "We need your plan in place." Or was it by May the 25th to whether you're going to start up again or not? I mean, the world of football actually has to get together and do what's right at this time. I just do not see a way where football can come back. And, I know that I think the English model, we're looking at the Bundesliga to sort of lead and maybe be the test case and to see how that pans out and maybe then follow that. But there does seem to be, too many complications just from the outside, and I've not got a clue. But what if, they have all this testing and one player contracts COVID-19? What happens then? Does the season just shut down? And the likelihood of that must be must be pretty high. That with the nature of the testing and not knowing how people are carrying it, whether they're carrying it, this, that, and the other, it must be pretty high. That.
Yeah, and of course, let's not forget, I mean, the Bundesliga is one thing, but different governments, different countries have different ways of handling and the severity of COVID-19. Obviously, the UK is not in a good state. I'm fortunate to live in a country where we've done pretty well, I have to say. I'm very proud of Malaysia and how we've handled things so far. So hopefully things can come to a natural conclusion and there will be cohesion in football. And also, whether the players want to play, let's not forget, the mental health, the well-being of the players should also be paramount, whether they would be comfortable to play. You can't really force someone. A club can't say you have to go and play because we're paying your wages. You don't want to affect your family. If you're a player and you're living with your mum or your father.
But Adam, the only way it can happen is that the players go away for a period of time and don't go home to their families.
Yeah.
Like Tottenham, for instance, they're lucky. They've got a state-of-the-art training complex. They can all live there. They've got a hotel there. They stay there for the 3-4 weeks, however long it takes. They don't go home. They don't see their families. Whoever's in that training camp or whoever's in that training ground has to be tested. If they test positive, they cannot be within that group. That's the only way they're all going to do it. Now, likes of Sheffield United and Burnley, who haven't got them resources, how are they going to be able to maintain it? Are they going to rent out a hotel which is exclusively to them? I mean, it's a minefield. It's a minefield, and I'm glad that I'm not the one trying to organise it. Chris is right. It's going to be, whatever decision is going to be made, there's going to be someone who's going to be disappointed with it. Not everyone is going to be happy. We all want the disease, first and foremost, to be out of the way by June, July. We can get started. Yes, there's going to be a mini pre-season for the rest of the players. Some of the training grounds in the Premier League are open now for individual training. They're keeping their social distancing, the players. To get them back as a group, you're going to need them back in a group for a minimum of 2 weeks before you can look at starting playing football matches. And they're going to have to sacrifice their bodies as well. Yeah, we can't. No one wants to listen. After coming through this pandemic, no one wants to listen about being tired. And they're too tired to play football matches. Get on with it. Everyone's in the same boat. It's a game every 2 days. It's the only way they're going to get through this season and then have a format where we can go into the next season and have a clean run through it. But not everyone's going to be happy.
And it's not just the players, though, Adam, is it? You've then got the support staff, you've got doctors, you've got physios, you've got masseurs, and you've got people. If they, for argument's sake, have to then go home and they're not in isolation, masseurs, all players want massages. They're in close contact with players, obviously, and then if they go home to a pregnant partner, then they are putting their partner at risk. If they have an elderly parent or grandparent, so. This whole situation is really, really complicated, and it'll be really interesting. How they go about this planning. They've got this what's it, Project Restart, whatever. But at the moment, it looks like Project Non-Starter.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the news today, Dybala's tested positive again. He still has not got a negative test. He's been positive since March. This is his 4th test. So we just don't know enough about this virus, COVID-19, to really know how to proceed as well, which is an issue.
Well, they're telling us over here about the importance of social distancing and, social distancing into next year. So, if you play football, I mean, are you just going to allow from corner kicks one defender and one forward in the box? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, gents, I've really taken up too much of your time. I know, I apologize for that. But my final question here, it's a bit more of a lighthearted one. I might have asked this to you already, Chris, but I'm going to ask it again so we can also get Tim's take. The Premier League Hall of Fame, I was really excited by this. It was due to be launched this year. They were due to announce, I think in March, the first 2 inductees into it. So I know it's a very American sort of thing to have a Hall of Fame, but who would your first 2 inductees be? Who would you plump for?
Oh, go on, Tim.
Alan Shearer. I'm going to go with Alan Shearer first and foremost. I think he's the main reason why we're getting interviewed here today, to be honest. I mean, he was that important, and Chris already touched on it earlier. He is the single best striker the Premier League has ever seen. 260 goals, is it? He might argue 61. But I just feel that I don't think his record's ever going to get beaten. And he certainly, if there's a Hall of Fame and he's not in it, it's crazy.
Harry Kane won't break his record, you don't think? If he stays
the only way Harry exactly is the only way Harry breaks his record, and internationally as well, I believe, is if he stays at Tottenham, because I can't see Harry Kane leaving Tottenham and going to any other club in the Premier League.
No, not even Manchester United.
Not even Manchester United.
Wow, okay.
That's just my opinion.
Of course.
Yeah, I think he might go Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich. I could see him there, yes, if things don't turn around at Tottenham. He wants to stay at Tottenham for the rest of his career, that's for sure. But in the end, he wants to win stuff.
I think he'll be off to Man U, Adam.
Ooh. Do you?
Yeah.
Why?
I do. Because he won't win anything at Tottenham, and United need a top striker, and he would fit perfectly. Just on the Hall of Fame thing, Tim didn't name two. You notice? Can I put myself in, Adam?
You can if you want, by all means.
No, don't be ridiculous. You'd have to have the best. I'd have Shearer, Alan Shearer, 260 goals, and you'd have to have Thierry Henry, the greatest ever player the Premier League scene. So they would have to be the first two, wouldn't they? Who would yours be, Adam?
I would have to say it was either Giggs or Shearer, but I'd probably go for Shearer because of his goal tally, and Sir Alex Ferguson. Just because for me, he's synonymous across so many seasons in the Premier League.
You didn't say managers, though. You didn't give us that option.
Well, I'm not setting the rules. The Premier League Hall of Fame is setting the rules, and they haven't announced a manager's count. So I'm twisting it a bit. Does that change your opinion at all if I say Sir Alex Ferguson?
No, he'll be in there eventually. Yeah, but I take on board with what you say, Adam. Tim's got one more. He can.
Yeah, he does. So who's the second choice? You can't say Chris Sutton. Can't have the SAS as the first two inductees.
Robbie Slater.
Robbie Slater works as well. Why not?
I would say yours is a great shout. Both of yours, actually, Giggs. If you win it that many times, I mean, surely you must be in the Hall of Fame. And not only that, I like players who entertain, and he certainly entertained, didn't he? Everyone loved watching Giggsy. We just hate playing against him because he was capable of destroying you at any time. And if you're going to put any manager in, it has to be Sir Alex Ferguson. And if you're going to make it one of your first ones, why not? I mean, Shearer and Sir Alex Ferguson as the first two. Yeah, there'll be fireworks at that meeting.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you said Shearer was the best striker the Premier League's ever seen. So
for me,
Chris was saying Thierry Henry was the greatest player the Premier League's ever seen. Does that make Shearer the greatest player? Because Henry was a striker as well. I mean, there's certain imbalance there.
What you're saying to Tim, Adam, is if you had to pick one, aren't you? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
If I had to pick one as a manager, with my manager's head on, if I had to pick one player to play for me in the English Premier League, there's only one, Alan Shearer, out of them two.
Chris?
Goals win games.
Well, I only managed at League Two level, Adam, so I couldn't possibly answer that.
Football Manager can always help out. I know what I'm getting you for Christmas. Gents, thank you so much for today. I've really, really enjoyed this, and hopefully I'll be seeing you both very soon. Not digitally, but actually in real life. And I do hope you take care during these very troubling times.